What is going on, everybody? Spooky here, bringing you guys an Omnom deck tag, Omnath, Locus of Creation. Um, this time we're just doing Moxfield. I don't have all these cards in person quite yet. I don't know if I ever will. I have had an Omnath deck in the past, but I've decided I would rebuild one. So what we've got going here is I haven't put this in any sort of category yet. If I would assume it would be in one of my 7 to 8 lists. I have not played this in person, however. So I've titled this deck Nom 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 Nom, obviously because we have Omnom, our commander. So Omnath, our commander, is red, green, white, and blue, 4/4 elemental. When he enters the battlefield, draw a card, and then he has a landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life, if this is the first time. If it's the second time, you gain red, green, white, blue. If it's the third time, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you do not control. So looking at the deck list, we have lots of land ramp, obviously. There's a couple different infinites in here. There's a couple things that might stick out, like Perforos and Impact Tremors, but we'll go over that and why those guys are in here. The stack is costly. We're sitting at $3,000, almost $4,000. You can budget a lot of this land base out. You can go with more of the cycle lands, like Triomes instead of these duels. You don't have to run duels, but I am on Moxfield. This is a good deck, so I'm going to run the duels as long as I can. So I guess we can go ahead and run down on our creature lines. I'll kind of explain any combos I've got or anything and what's going on. Why I think each card deserves a slot in the deck. Obviously, we're running AC. AC says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. That's exactly what we want. We especially want that second activation off of Omnath for that 4 extra mana. He also draws us cards whenever a land enters the battlefield. I feel like that's enough said. Ancient Greed Warden doubles our landfall triggers, and we get to play lands from our graveyard. It's a little bit pricey, but trust me, it works. It helps a lot. The Shia makes all of our creatures for us as well. She counts as a landfall trigger herself and makes all of our future creatures that aren't tokens count for landfall triggers. Augur of Autumn says we can play lands off the top of our library, and with some extra text that says we can cast creature spells from the top of our library if we control 3 or more creatures with different powers. And we are currently running 29, and not including our commander, so should be fairly easy. Azusa Lost But Seeking lets us play 2 additional lands on each of our turns. That's pretty good. Bloom Tender taps for Omnath colors if Omnath is out. Bloom Tender is actually the only dork I have in here. If you want to budget it out a little bit more, you could probably throw in some dorks and have just as good as a time. I just really wanted to focus on that land ramp as much as possible. Cultivator Colossus. I'm not running any infinites specifically with this card. I know a lot of people do, but all I'm running is banking on the card draw and banking on drawing into more lands. I think Cultivator Colossus is super cool, but to be honest, in this list, I think he's one of the first cuttable cards. Dryad of the Ills and Grove. He lets us play an additional land, and all of our lands tap for whatever color we want them to. Knight of the Reliquary. Now, what you're going to want to go get with Knight of the Reliquary, most of the time, the first time, you're going to want to grab Field of the Dead. Field of the Dead is one of the core things around the stack. I watch a lot of nitpicking nerds. What can I say? They definitely like Field of the Dead, so I've kind of got a bias from them. We're running Kodama of the East Tree. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, guess what? If you have another land in hand, you get to put another land into play. Kodama also goes infinite with just about everything in the game, so it just works. I think yeah, Kodama does have an infinite in this deck, and I will explain that once I get there. We're only one card off. We have Lotus Cobra. Lotus Cobra generates lots of mana. He's a good snake, even for not landfall decks. I think Lotus Cobra is pretty good, but you know, he's just a good card all around. Here's the card that goes infinite with Kodama. We have Moloku, the Clouded Mirror. So Moloku says, pay 1, return a land you control to its owner's hand, make a 1/1 bird. Not bird. Blue Illusion creature token with flying. So it might as well be a 1/1 bird. So basically what happens is you tap, you return the land that you tap to your hand, you make a bird, I'm going to call it a bird, okay? You make a bird, Kodama sees the bird enter, you put the land back into play. Guess what? It's untapped. You pay another, you bounce it, you make a bird, Kodama, make infinite 1/1 Blue Illusion creature tokens with flying. Oracle of Moldiah, you can play an additional land on each of your turns. You can play with the top card of your library revealed, and you can play lands off the top. That's just solid. Perforos, this goes with Moloku. There is also a couple different ways to get infinite zombies off of Field of the Dead, but this is going to be one of our main win cons. Perforos is indestructible. He's hard to get rid of most of the time. We're not having a lot of red pips, so normally he's not a creature. He normally can't be hit by swords or path. Just a solid win con. Ramming Up Excavator. We really want to be able to play these fetches out of our graveyard. Solid card. Risen Reef, also another one of the first cuttable cards, but Risen Reef is pretty solid. I decided to keep him in here. He comes out turn before Omnath, reveals top card if it's a land you put on the battlefield, whatever. If not, whatever. You put it in your hand. Omnath triggers it again because it triggers off of any elemental. I just figured it was solid enough to keep in. Royal Elemental. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may gain control of target creature for as long as you control Royal Elemental. In this deck, you basically just gain control of everybody's creatures. It is pretty sweet. I love this card. It does cost 3 blue pips, but yeah, I think it's definitely good enough to go in here. Ruin Ghost, another one of the infinites in the deck. You can pay a white and tap it to exile a land you control, then return that land back to the battlefield under your control. This goes infinite with Retreat to Kornhelm. So what happens here is you pay the white. Say we have a plains. We pay the white, we exile the plains, and return that to the battlefield. Retreat to Kornhelm is going to trigger, and we can untap our Ruin Ghost. And if we untap our Ruin Ghost and we have an untapped plains, we can do it over and over again, getting infinite landfall triggers. We can win several different ways from there. Sakura Tribe Elder, he can sack to go get a basic land. We're running 6, 9, 10, 11, I think, basic lands in this deck. I think that's more than enough to justify running a couple dudes who go get basics. Scoot Swarm, another thing just that makes infinite bodies if we have an infinite landfall trigger out, which with Perforos sort of just waiting a turn rotation would win the game. Spring Bloom Druid, pretty solid. You sack a land, go find 2. Never go wrong with him. He's just like Harrow, but on a stick. Tet Yova, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, gain a life and draw a card. That's such a solid card. Tet Yova definitely belongs in this deck. Thassa, Deep Dwelling, can flicker Omnath at your end step, draw another card. I think these cards are solid enough to keep in. I have 3 different ways to do it, so hopefully, you know. Tireless Provisioner, whenever a land enters battlefield under your control, make a food or a treasure. 9 times out of 10, you're going to make a treasure token. You shouldn't really need to worry about life in this deck with Omnath. Omnath gains you a ton of life all the time. So pretty solid, makes you extra mana. Tireless Tracker. He gives you clues. Clues can help you draw cards if you need it. It also triggers Kodama off of those clues, so you can put more lands into play. Just solid card in the landfall deck. Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, 3 mana, 6/6, ETB or attack. You gain 3 life and draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. However, when he enters the battlefield, you sack it. But he has an escape cost to exile 5 other cards from your graveyard and cast Simic. You can cast him. Wayward Swordtooth. He can't attack or block unless you have City's Blessing, but that's not really why he's in here. He's in here for the extra turn. Not extra turn, extra land drop. You want as many ways to play as many lands as you can, especially with Tetyova and AC and effects like that. Wood Elves, another solid creature ramp spell. He enters the battlefield, go find a forest. This also triggers off of Thassa and stuff like that, so I figured, why not keep him in here? Zakama. This came off of a Nitpicking Nerds video. I actually like it. Pay 9 mana, so 6 in Naya. When he enters the battlefield, if you cast it, untap all lands you control. That's pretty crazy, I think. Vigilance Reach, Trample, 9/9, 2 in a red, Bolt something, 2 in a green, Crows and Grip something, and 2 in a white. Gain 3 life. He's pretty solid. He untaps all your lands, which is pretty sweet. So that's it for the creatures. We'll move on to the sorceries now. We have Cultivate. Shouldn't have to explain Cultivate. It's pretty sweet and simple. Search for 2 basic lands. One of them goes to battlefield tap, one goes to hand. Explore. You may play an additional land this turn. Draw a card. Farseek. Search your library for a Plains, Island, Swamp, or Mountain card. Obviously, you won't search for a Swamp card, but this is a great card in a landfall deck. Hour of Promise. This goes and finds Field of the Dead and Vesuva, or any other combination of lands if you already have Field of the Dead out. You can get fetches. You can get whatever 2 lands that you need and put them straight onto the battlefield with Hour of Promise. It's such a solid card. Kodama's Reach. Same thing as Cultivate. Nature's Lore goes and finds a forest card, puts it on the battlefield untapped, which is the important part. We're running Ondu Inversion, which is a board wipe. Destroys all non-land permanents. It's pretty solid for a deck that makes a lot of mana. And it is also a land on the back if we really need that landfall trigger. Pierce Whim. Go get a land. You can go get Field of the Dead. Or any other land that you may need. You will put it on the battlefield tap. Field of the Dead already comes in tapped anyway. And then you fucking 3 for 1 if you really need it to. Rampant Growth, search for a basic land card, put on battlefield tap, pretty solid. Scape Shift, sack any number of lands, search your library for up to that many lands, and put them on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Say you get Scape Shift, you sack a bunch of lands, you go find... I know I keep going back to it, but you find Field of the Dead and 6 fetch lands, you are sweeping the board next turn, man. Seagate Restoration. Late game, this card draws you a lot. Early game, it is a bolted in island if you need it. Pretty solid land. Skyshore Claim goes and gets 2 forests and puts them on the battlefield untapped. Can be a dual land. We have 3 visits. Same thing as Nature's Lore. Wargate. Bant. Go find Field of the Dead. Like I said, Field of the Dead is a pretty important part of this deck. Field of the Dead goes with Purphoros. Pretty sure I've explained that once, but I can't make that more clear that Purphoros is part of the big part of the deck. We're also running Impact Tremors, so it's not just Purphoros. Crop Rotation goes against Field of the Dead. Cyclonic Rift, boring but good board wipe. Growth Spiral, draw a card, put a land from your hand on the battlefield. Harrow is additional cast to cost a spell. Sack a land, search your library for 2 basics, and put them on the battlefield tapped. No, untapped. That's what makes this one really good. Just a pretty solid ramp spell. A land ramp spell. Heliod's Intervention. We're making a bunch of mana. You can blow up anything you want, basically, with this. And in it, you can gain a bunch of life with this. It's Fairy's Protection. Phase out. Everything you control phases out. Somebody tries to Armageddon you. It sounds weird, but it's happened before. You just Fairy's Protection. Phase everything out. and just go from there. Conjures Closet, another thing to flicker Omnath. This also flickers anything else that you might need it to. Crucible of Worlds, you really want to play those lands from your graveyard. I promise, fetch lands over and over again are crazy. Aura Shards with Field of the Dead is crazy. It's honestly kind of unfair. The zombies just keep coming and playing. You keep blowing up artifacts and enchantments. It's nutty. Exploration gets you an extra land drop. Extra land drops is exactly what you want for this deck. It just works. Felidar Retreat can buff your zombies if you needed to. It also makes 2/2 cats every time a land enters. So another thing that goes infinite with any of this stuff. Any infinite landfall trigger, you make infinite zombies. Creature enters the battlefield, 1 damage each opponent. Another thing. Retreat to Coral Helm. I showed you the combo with this. Teleportation Circle. Another thing that flickers Omnath or any other creature that you may need it to. Zendikar's Royal. Yet another thing that makes 2/2 bodies. That's all your creatures, sorceries, instants, artifacts, and enchantments. We can get onto the lands now. So we're running every fetch land, I think, that we possibly can. We're running every shock that we possibly can. We're running City of Brass and Mana Confluence. We're running the Pain lands because you put them in your graveyard, play them from your graveyard. They can be another landfall trigger also. We're running 3 forests, 3 islands, 3 plains, and 2 mountains. That is just because mountain, I think, is our least color. I think. Yeah, by far, mountain is our... Red is our least color, 73% green. And we're running all the duels as well. We're running Scattered Groves and Sheltered Thicket just to make sure we don't run out of fetch targets. And we're running Strip Mine and Wasteland, basically to be a dick. That is, I mean, you blow up everybody's lands, what are they going to do? Nothing. We're running a couple copy targets, so Vesuva can copy Field of the Dead, Despian Stage can copy Field of the Dead. They don't have to, they can copy anything else, but that's what we're normally going to copy. That's the rundown of this deck. That's pretty much everything that I can think of. Let's see. I was just wondering, we can playtest a hand. So, would we keep this hand? We have a Hallowed Fountain, a Windswept Heath, and a Vesuva for lands. Cultivator Colossus is a Kama, Farseek, and Risen Reef. I would probably be willing to try this hand, but I don't think, for video's purpose, I don't think I would keep this hand. We have 2 very expensive cards. We have basically 2 lands because we can play Vesuva. We don't have to wait, but we basically want these. So we're gonna restart this. Let's see. Nope. What do we go down to? See, this I think is a more viable opener hand. We have our 4 lands: Spring Bloom Druid, Risen Reef, and Zendikar's Royal. We're playing Commander, so we're going to draw on our first turn. We draw a Conjurer's Closet. That's not great, but we'll play a Misty Rainforest on turn 1. We'll go to our next turn. We'll go ahead and play a Horizon Canopy. At their end step, we're going to fetch and just find a Breeding Pool tapped. So we'll close it shuffle. We'll go to our next turn. We draw a mountain. That's fine. We'll actually play that mountain. Tap these and cast Risen Reef. Like I said, we found Crucible Rolls. That goes to hand, and we would pass to our next turn. So we have green, white, red, blue. We'll tap those and cast an Omnath. Omnath enters the battlefield. We're going to draw a card first, and then we'll reveal the top card of our library. It is Wargate. Wargate will go to hand. We'd have to discard 2. We still haven't drawn. We're running 43 or 44 lands in this deck. We've only drawn 1, I think. I think in this hand, we get rid of Zendikar's Royal and probably Conjurer's Closet, to be honest. As much as I don't want to get rid of that, I think that is the move. Go to our next turn. We can play... We get all 3 of our landfall triggers if we want them. Do we need them? I think that's worth it. We'll play this and we'll gain 4. We should have lost 1 for this and 1 for Misty Rainforest. We'll tap 1, 2, 3 for Spring Bloom Druid. Spring Bloom Druid enters battlefield. We'll sacrifice this land. We will view our library. We're gonna find. They have to be the same. No, they don't. We'll find a forest and an island. Forest tapped. And island tapped. We'll gain 4 life. 1, 2, 3, 4, and make 4 mana. So, actually, I think I've gained by 4 life. With our 4 mana, we're going to keep 1 of it and cast Wargate. We're going to keep a red. And we will search for our Field of the Dead. We're going to put this into play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll make a zombie. I don't think they're tapped. Nope. And then we can do this. We can play Steve. And on the next turn, we can sack Steve. Hang on. We drew Kodama. Let's cast Crucible Worlds, right? We've got lands in our graveyard. I don't think we have any fetches. Oh, we do. We can play this fetch. So... we will gain 4. I guess I'll fetch. We will search for anything really. Doesn't matter that bad. Pleasant Shuffle. Full. Gain 4 mana. We use 4 of that mana and 2 green to cast Kodama. We can not do shit. On somebody else's turn, we'll sack Steve to go find a basic land and gain 4 life. This is tapped, but for VSA, whatever. And we'll not do that. We'll shuffle and do our next turn. So we're kind of in late game right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cast Seagate Restoration. Draw 4 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. Play City of Brass. Gain 4. Trigger Kodama. Put in this Stomping Ground. Shock it in. Add 4 mana to our mana pool. We'll use a green and white. No, green and red to cast this Explore. Draw a card. I can play an additional land. We'll play this land. We'll deal 4 damage to each opponent. I still have 2 mana floating. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll play Ancient Green Warden. Trigger Kodama. We will put Moloku into play. Trigger Risen Reef. Reveal, we have a Zeus in the hand. Next turn. Does that do it? No, not quite. Oh, yes, it does. Yeah, that does it. That does it. So what happens here is on turn 8, we don't quite win here, but we do make infinite 1/1s and infinite 2/2s. I think we should have made a couple more 2/2s here, but mistriggers, whatever. I think we make infinite 2/2s and infinite 1/1s here. So what we do is we activate Maloku's ability. We tap 1, return this land to our hand. We make a 1/1 illusion. Not that button, this button. This Kodama here sees the illusion enter the battlefield, so we'll put a land into play. That'll trigger our landfalls, which right now is just Omnath. We would gain 4 life twice. And then we can rinse and repeat until whenever we want to stop. Make infinite whatevers. There's also infinite landfall triggers. So if we had anything like Takeover or AC out, we could infinite landfall for the win, pretty much. But I've ran through the deck once. I've explained everything in the deck list to the best of my ability. I don't believe I have anything else to say for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys want a specific commander to be done next time, please let me know. I enjoy building decks a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. Omnath is a very fun commander, and I hope you guys got some help out of this video. Thanks.